love what you do and you'll never work a day in your life. So I still don't feel like I'm working. I'm just getting up, I'm going to the rink. I'm around a great group of guys, a great group of players. And so it still doesn't really feel like work, fortunately for me.
Welcome everyone to Hockey Culture. I'm Anson Carter. And this is the place where we try to change the culture of hockey, one interview at a time. And today we've got a very special guest joining us. We've got Emily Engel-Natzke, the first female coach hired by the Washington Capitals, the video coach for AHL affiliate Hershey Bears. Emily, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
So you grew up in Colorado. I was actually drafted initially by the Quebec Nordiques, who moved to the Colorado Avalanche. And you're able to watch the Avs during their heyday. Who was your favorite player in Colorado when you were growing up?
Patrick Waugh, by far. He's one of the reasons why I wanted to be a goalie. Just his competitive spirit. I don't want to say crazy because that seems a little mean, but fiery competitor. He was really fun to watch, and I mean the whole team was fun to watch, but he was by far my favorite.
I don't usually get along with goaltenders. They're a little bit quirky, and my goalie friends give me a hard time for saying that, but it's a tough position. You're kind of out there on an island all by yourself, and you have to develop mental toughness to play that position, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. When a goal gets scored, ultimately it's the goalie's fault. Essentially, they're the last line of defense, so you definitely have to learn how to shake things off quickly, kind of reset. And it's definitely a hard position, but one that definitely helps you kind of create those mental skills.
So when you were playing a minor hockey growing up, were there a lot of other girls playing on your teams? You have to play on boys' teams like a lot of women had to do back then.
I started playing on boys' teams, or I guess technically co-ed, but I was usually one of the only girls. And that was okay with me. I have an older brother, and I was always kind of hanging around with him and his friends. So I was used to being kind of the only girl, but I don't think I started playing on girls' teams until I was in high school. So it was definitely something that came on a little bit later for me.
Were there any challenges with being the only girl on the team? I know being a black hockey player, I was fortunate enough to have another black player playing on my team in minor hockey up until I went to college. And I never thought it was a big deal being the only black player on my team, but a lot of my black friends that grew up playing hockey with me stopped playing because not enough people looked like them on their team. What was it like for you?
I think there might just be some added pressure because you are the only girl or the only woman. More eyes are on you. So if you don't play well or something happens, people are going to say, well, she's a girl, like she doesn't belong here. So maybe there's a little bit of added pressure, but I've been really fortunate that when I was a kid, I was on teams where my teammates would stick up for me. Working on coaching staffs, my coaches always stuck up for me too. So I've been really fortunate, but there's kind of that underlying pressure to prove people wrong.
I'm learning we have a lot in common. You're able to use their love of hockey to take you to play college hockey, play in the club team, but I'm a creative guy. I love film. I love production. What was it about film that made you want to study that at the university level?
I think just the creative part of it. I never saw myself sitting at a desk from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. I've always had kind of a creative brain, maybe thinking outside the box a little bit. So working in film, getting my degree in film really allowed me to kind of use that creativity and express myself in different ways. And I was really lucky that the University of Colorado had a really great film program that I could just jump into and kind of really dive in head first.
Now you graduate with your degree and you think about film and production, you usually go to New York or you go to LA, but not Emily. You went and worked for USA Hockey. Tell me about the path that took you to working for USA Hockey.
Yeah, so most of my classmates did go to New York or LA, and I knew I didn't really want to get into the film business. If anything, I was kind of thinking, ESPN 30 for 30s or E60s, something like that. But my club coach at CU was asked to be an assistant coach for the World University Games that happens every couple of years, and they needed someone to do video for them. I didn't really know what all that entailed, but she told me it was 2 weeks in northern Italy right before Christmas. So I was in. It was definitely a learning experience. I didn't really know what I was doing, but you kind of just learn on the fly and fake it till you make it. But once I realized that that was a job that people had, I was kind of all in, and the search was on to try and make that a career.
Did you have any skills that you learned at school? I mean, the big thing that I always tell my friends, and when I go to college, I was like, go to college, but a lot of stuff you learn at school isn't the same things you might apply to the real world. So was there any skills at all that you, or your parents like, Emily, you went to school, you wasted 4 years, you're not using any of those skills that you learned during a film school at all in your current profession?
Yeah, they actually translate a lot. And a lot of it, to be honest with you, is troubleshooting. Anyone who works with technology knows that things go wrong fairly often. And so you kind of have to think quickly on your feet. So having that technological background and knowing kind of how cameras work definitely helps, especially in this day and age when things are changing so fast. 4K video is becoming a norm. So I think just kind of having that tech background definitely helps and translates. So my parents are very, very happy that I'm still using that degree that I got a few years ago.
Trust me, I know all about technical difficulties. I had a hard time signing on to our Zoom call today, so I could totally relate to that. Now, you went from USA Hockey, you moved on to University of Wisconsin basketball, not hockey. I mean, normally in Wisconsin, I give you a hard time, but you're also part of the Big Ten, Michigan State Spartan. You can't tell by the blue that I'm wearing today. I should be wearing green because we're getting close to St. Patrick's Day. But what was it about basketball? You just use it as a stepping stone to get to hockey eventually?
Correct. So I actually had applied and interviewed for the hockey video coordinator position, and I didn't get it. I was devastated. And I got a call out of the blue a couple of months later saying that they had an opening with women's basketball and asked if I was still interested. And I knew that that was a foot in the door. Like you said, it's a Big Ten conference, a huge athletic program. And even if I stayed in basketball, I figured somewhere down the road, just with connections and knowing people, I might be able to move into hockey. So kind of went out on a whim, worked with women's basketball for a season. And then I was lucky enough that that hockey job opened up the next summer. And so I was able to move over to men's and women's hockey.
That's an important lesson for boys, girls, men, and women out there. You do what you have to do in order to do what you want to do. And you could have very easily said, you know what, hockey's not available, I'm going to go someplace else. But you paid your dues. You showed that you had the skills and the ability to cut basketball tapes. And now that's, I'm sure, is giving you the confidence now to move on to different levels, because now you've been able to do it in basketball. You can now do it in hockey. And I want to fast forward to Coach Tony Granato being hired as the hockey coach there at University of Wisconsin. I'm sure that could have been a little intimidating. Here's a guy that played in the National Hockey League, coached the highest levels. Now he's coming back to his alma mater to be the head coach. You have this conversation with him. You said, Coach Granato, I want to get to the National Hockey League. What was that conversation like? What was his response after that to you?
So I was definitely intimidated. And it was almost kind of like word vomit when he and his brother, Donnie, they were kind of just trying to get to know me a little bit better, asked what my career aspirations were. And I just, without even thinking, just said, I want to be a video coach in the NHL. And immediately afterwards, I was kind of like, oh, I don't know if that was like the smart thing to say. But with no hesitation, they both were like, okay, awesome. Like we can help get you there. So they were supportive from the very start. And I'm so lucky and fortunate that I was able to work for Tony, work with Donnie for a year, and Mark Osiki and Mark Strobel.
How did they prepare you for that next step, getting hired by the Hershey Bears? Like, you had that experience coaching USA Hockey, and you're coaching with University of Wisconsin, Tony Granato, and you take these steps. There's a natural progression that you take, even as a hockey player. You're going to play minor hockey, you play college, you might play in the minors, you might not. So there's the steps you have to take. How did those steps prepare you for being a video coach with the Hershey Bears now at the professional level?
They gave me a lot of work, and sometimes it felt like maybe I was drowning a little bit, or wow, this is a lot of work. But there was always a purpose behind it. Pre-scout film, getting NHL clips to help teach our players the systems that they were working on. There was a recruiting aspect, helping them with recruiting, creating graphics, like a graphic designer would. So they threw a lot on me. And like I said, at the time, it felt like a lot, but there's no way I would be here where I am now without that. And so much of it has translated over to Hershey and just made me much more prepared than I ever thought I would be.
So how did you even get to Hershey? I mean, how does that even happen? I know when you're a hockey player, you get scouted, you get drafted, you get signed as a free agent. How does that happen? If people out there watching, they want to become a video coach in the National Hockey League, how does that even happen for you? Like, take me through that whole process and enlighten me a little bit.
Yeah, so I had gone to a users conference every summer that Huddle puts on, which is the software that Wisconsin uses. And it's every summer in Las Vegas in July. And there's a very small collection of hockey teams that use this software. So you get to know people a little bit. And I met Brett Leonhardt, who is the video coach for the Washington Capitals, out at that conference in the summer of 2019. Just casually talked with him, a little bit of talking shop. Didn't really, think anything of it. It was awesome to get to know him, kind of see how they do things. Fast forward to October 2020, I got a text kind of out of the blue asking if I would ever be interested in an American Hockey League job. And I was kind of surprised. And I just said, yeah, it depends on the situation, but that's definitely something that I would consider. So, Brett gave me a call. I talked with him and his assistant, Jared, kind of moved on to talking to Spencer Carberry and then management. And, like a week and a half, 2 weeks later, I had the job. So it was a very kind of out of the blue, but very quick.
And it's something Javier Gutierrez, he came on for president CEO of Arizona Coyotes. He came on, he said, and I took this from our conversation, diverse networks leads to diverse solutions. And you said it best, going out to that conference, going out there networking, talking to people, not looking for a job, but eventually it turned into a job for you. What does your day look like as the video coach there in Hershey? Take me through what you do from a day basis, and does it change on a game day through a practice day?
Yeah, so a practice day typically starts around 7 a.m. We meet as a coaching staff, kind of talk about the lineup, what they want to do in practice that day. So I'll kind of design the practice sheet, put up a video loop if there's new drills or kind of a refresher for our guys. I'll set up a GoPro for our goalie practice because I got to keep our goalies, make sure they have everything they need. I'll film practice and then give it to the coaches afterwards. We'll meet as a staff and kind of go through practice, what we liked, what we didn't like, kind of the plan heading into the next day. And then from there, usually there's some pre-scout involved. So watching our opponent, breaking that down. Right now our schedule is pretty light, but normally there'd be a lot of pre-scout. And on a game day, it's kind of, printing out information for our players so they know more about our opponent. And just getting ready for meetings, making sure the coaches have everything that they need. A couple of system meetings, pre-scout meeting, and then it's game time and I'm breaking down everything live. Post-game, making sure again the coaches have everything they need, sending our players their shifts from that game, and then kind of getting ready to do it all again the next day.
That's crazy. I can tell you right now, after listening to your day, I will never be a video coach ever in hockey because my day doesn't start before 9 a.m., maybe 10 a.m. I like my morning naps after taking the kids to school. But all the stuff that you're doing, you're seeing the increase in video in hockey all the time. You always see the guys with the iPads on the bench, the women on the iPads on the bench. Is it just the coaching staff you're working with to cut these clips, or do players actually come to you and say, hey, Emily, I want to see this shift, or I want to see this in the power play? Or do you search out the players and have that conversation with them?
I definitely think it's a two-way street. Players will definitely come to me and they'll ask for specific things, or if they can't find something on their iPad, they can come for me and ask, where is this? How can I find it? And they also started watching practice. I started sending practice to their iPads as well. So they're constantly learning. They want this information. And I'm more than happy to send them things as well that our coaching staff thinks are really important. So it's definitely a two-way street. And I think, like you said, the use of videos just increased. I see it just getting even more important kind of as technology increases and gets better. I think you'll see that kind of need and want for information.
The hardest part of my job, and I would speak for any former player that's an analyst right now, is being hard on players and picking out their mistakes. Because as a former player, I know how hard it is to play in the National Hockey League or hockey at any level. There's not a lot of time, not a lot of space. We've got the beauty of having video and the tape. I tell players all the time, you might not like what I say on television, the tape does not lie. How do you find the balance now between picking out clips and using as a teaching tool, maybe stuff that guys have to work on, versus reinforcing the positive aspect of their game?
I think you look for tendencies, in both areas, good and bad. If there's consistency in their wall play, you want to show them good wall play clips that led to other good things. And vice versa, if there's an area where they're struggling, maybe it's net front, maybe it's, boxing players out, then you show them and then reinforce with something that's good. It's definitely a balance. You don't want to, sewer guys in a video session, but there's definitely value in seeing things rather than just hearing it from a coach. Like you said, the video doesn't lie. And, me personally, I'm a visual person. So if I can see it, then I can reinforce it. If I see something good, then I can remember that and try and execute it the next time.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same way. I'm definitely visual. You could tell me 1,000 different times, do the same exact thing. But once I see it the one time, then I can finally do it. And you're right. There's times I've pulled our video coaches aside in the past. I'm like, hey, you can't throw me on the bus like that. Are you serious? Like, I've saw other guys make that same turnover. Why do you have me as the star of that highlight tape? So it's a difficult conversation to have, but I had a lot of fun with it too, being a player and a video coach, having those conversations. Did you find that you had to adjust the way you cut tapes? Because college, you play 30, 40 games versus at the professional level, you could play up to 80 games?
Yeah, I think, like I said, it's just finding tendencies. So in college, you have more time. So, it might be a broader range of things that you're looking for, more systems based. When you have more games, you're looking for little things that may sound nitpicky, but in the end, it makes a big difference, whether that's stick positioning, things like that, where they seem so minute. But in a 80-game season, little things can really add up. So I think in college is a little more broad, definitely kind of more teaching. And in the pro game, it seems like, it's those little things that are going to help guys kind of make that next step.
This year's been super challenging for a number of different reasons. Coronavirus has impacted our country in ways that we could never have imagined. It definitely hit home with you. You lost your dad back in April. He was a massive supporter of yours. Talk about the impact your dad has had on your life, and even your mom, Maggie, too. But I know your dad is one of the big reasons why you fell in love with sports.
Yeah, I think, both my parents are super hardworking. So from a young age, they really instilled in my brother and I that, if you work hard, good things will happen and hard work pays off. And they also, from a really young age, told us to find things that make us happy, that we love doing, and not to chase money or not to just be a doctor just because they make lots of money, but to find something that we're really passionate about and love to do. So, some people thought I was crazy when I decided to be a film major, and maybe my parents were a little nervous, but never once did they tell me that's a mistake. They always just supported me, supported my dreams, even when they seemed crazy. So, they've always been my number one supporters, and they're huge sports fans too. So from a young age, we were always watching sports. So, I'm definitely a product of their hard work and their support and their love of sports.
I couldn't agree more. My parents are exactly the same way. They always told myself, my brother, my sister, love what you're doing. You'll never work a day in your life. I never worked a day in my life when I played the National Hockey League. And today, being a part of the NBC Sports family, I love what I do. And this is not work. I would do it for free. I enjoy having conversations with people like yourself. So your parents, your dad, Tom, rest in peace, and your mom, Maggie, very knowledgeable. That's a great piece of advice, because I use that advice. I carry that with me every single day.
Absolutely. And even, people talk about the grind of the hockey season, and sometimes it is hard to get up at, 5:30 for a 7 o'clock meeting. But if you just remember, how lucky and fortunate you are to love what you do and for me to watch hockey for a living. It's a good reflection point and something to always kind of keep in the back of your mind.
Yeah, it brings back memories to when I was training as a player. I mean, I joke about your video coaching, you're getting up at 7 a.m. to have these meetings. That means you're up way before that. I used to train at 7 a.m. every single day in the summertime. And I see these kids now training at 7 a.m. I'm like, I would never do that. And I had to be reminded by my agent, Pat Brisson. Bree's like, Ace, that was you at 7 a.m. back in the day. But you don't realize it because you're in it. You love it. You're so passionate about it. So when you step back and take a look, then you realize, wow, I guess you'd have to be passionate about doing that, or else why would you get up that early and go through that grind?
Exactly. And, like you said, love what you do and you'll never work a day in your life. So I still don't feel like I'm working. I'm just getting up, I'm going to the rink. I'm around a great group of guys, a great group of players. And so it still doesn't really feel like work, fortunately for me.
So now we're looking forward. You've taken that next step, the AHL, the affiliate, the Hershey Bears, and the NHL is doing a tremendous job with NHL's Coaches Association by providing support. How has that helped your career, leaning on the Coaches Association and what they're doing to develop female coaches?
It's been awesome. Just, again, talking about the networking aspect, being able to bounce ideas and questions off of, NHL coaches, college coaches, coaches who are at the grassroots level. Everyone sees the game differently, and that's kind of the beauty of it. And so just being able, like I said, to bounce ideas and questions off of others who have been in the game much longer than I have, it's invaluable. So, I can't thank them enough for how much they've helped me. And I know, the female coaches development program, I feel like it's just taking off, and it's going to help so many women continue their careers in hockey. And hopefully, we'll see more women kind of in the professional ranks and beyond.
Yeah, that female coaches development program, I know it's going to impact the coaching community, either on the men's game and the women's game in the next 10 to 15 years. The kind of resources and the time that they're putting into that and developing female coaches, it's been amazing. And to have conversations with Megan Duggan and Julie Chu and Sarah Nurse and Blake Bolton, all members of my Players Inclusion Committee that I co-chair with PK Subban, they said that was a real priority. Having that networking ability and those resources to bounce ideas off, not just other female coaches, but male coaches too, that's going to impact and help the level of coaching you're going to see from women going forward.
Absolutely. And I know, there were coaches in the NHL who worked with some of these coaches in the female coaches development program. They did some presentations together, and they said too, they learned things from the college coaches, so it definitely goes both ways. And it's only going to help the game of hockey. There's no way that it's going to hurt the game. With that knowledge being passed around, seeing different faces, people from different backgrounds, it's only going to help the sport that we all love.
100%. Well, Emily, I want to thank you very much. I know you've been talking about it. Your day's busy at Slam. I know you get a lot of tape you have to cut. So I don't want to get you in trouble with the Caps organization and the Hershey Bears. I want to thank you very much for taking time to speak to us today on Hockey Culture.
Thank you so much for having me.